Hello, hello. I am so super excited to jump into today's topic. Today, we're going to be talking about breastfeeding in public. And so, if you are pregnant and if you are preparing for motherhood, then you definitely want to stay tuned because I'm going to give you 4 tips on how to breastfeed in public so that you feel empowered and confident and you will be able to pursue this breastfeeding journey from a position of power instead of feeling like, ashamed or embarrassed or kind of awkward. So, with that being said, if this is your very first time tuning in to one of my lives, my name is Stephanie Poole. I am a certified lactation consultant and doula, and I help first time moms prepare for pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and breastfeeding like a pro. That's what I do. I help you to do it to the point where even though you're a first time mom, it's like you've done it before. Because that's how prepared and ready my moms are for birth. So, with that being said, I'm excited to jump into today's topic. So, let's first talk about why is it even important to, talk about breastfeeding in public? Why is that even, something that we would be here to discuss? Hello, by the way, please let me know where you're joining from. I always love to see who I'm talking to. When we talk about breastfeeding, it's important to understand that breastfeeding is not just feeding your baby. It is literally a source of nutrients that are vital for your baby's growth and development, right? It also serves as a bonding experience for you and your baby. So it's important that you're able to feel confident when it comes to feeding your baby in public. That I'm sorry, if you guys can hear me, definitely let me know. But with that said, when it comes to breastfeeding, and I have my handy tablet here to refer to for notes because I don't want to miss any of the points that I'm going to give. By the end of this live, you'll have 4 different points. Hello, and welcome. You'll have 4 different tips for how to breastfeed in public with confidence. Okay. So, with that being said, let's first of all talk about the importance of the fact that research has actually been done on this topic. And although, like a lot of people, hello and welcome, please let me know where you're joining from. Even though a lot of people might find it a bit awkward, especially if you're a first time mom when it comes to breastfeeding, then, it's important to look at the data so we could put everything in context. When they did research on the topic of breastfeeding in public, what they found was that most people were either supportive or indifferent. Supportive or indifferent. What does that mean? That means most people understand that babies have to eat. Babies have to eat. They got to get the nourishment and nutrition that they need. And so it's important for the baby to eat. And it's also like one of those things where a lot of people were even indifferent about it because it's just a thing that it's a natural process that has to take place. So why am I bringing that up? That research is important because what it does is put it into context. Even though we may feel a bit awkward if you're a first time mom and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to breastfeed in public. I think it's more comforting to understand that most people aren't really paying attention. They don't have a feeling about it. And a lot of people understand. Now, with that being said, there's always going to be an opportunity for someone to maybe say something or give you a look. But I don't want you to focus on that because that's not the majority, not where most people opinions are. Most people really support breastfeeding. They understand that it is truly necessary for the baby. And I also want to say this. I think a lot of times breastfeeding in public is more of an issue probably here in the United States than it is globally. Because another thing that I want to bring up is the fact that people breastfeed all over the world every single day. And in most countries, it's literally do or die. There's not a lot of options when you talk about, like, here in the United States, we have formula as an option, right? We have bottles and things like that as an option. But in a lot of countries, breastfeeding is done because those options just simply aren't there. And so this is more in probably a more westernized type culture than it is in a lot of other places around the world, because babies have to eat. And so recognizing that also helps to put things into perspective, that when you are out and you are feeding your baby, it really is just a natural process that takes place for the nurture and development of your baby's health and their growth. So just keep that in mind as I go through these different tips so that you can feel more confident when you're doing it, just simply coming from a position or a state of mind that it's normal. A lot of people support it. Most people are either supportive or indifferent of it. And also, really, in our culture, we have to understand that it is just a natural process, okay? Once we understand those things, right, and we kind of put everything into context about breastfeeding, then it's important to talk about the fact that, there are some things that we can do to help us to feel a little bit more comfortable. Trust me, after you've breastfed the first time, a few times, the first baby versus the second baby, you become so confident in it, it becomes a non-factor. So it's just those first few times when you do it that you kind of have to get adjusted to it, okay? The first tip that I have is to choose comfortable clothing. Now, this one is important. You want to wear something that you're comfortable in and something that allows ease of access. So it's oftentimes you have to consider that you'll have your baby in one hand or nearby, and you'll need to be able to access your breast at some point. So having a full long dress on, right, wouldn't necessarily be a good outfit choice if you're going to be out with your baby by yourself and you need the access. Now, if you're going to wear something like that, right, then I always suggest carrying like a really light cloth, because you can always throw that over and take your sleeve off to access your breast so the baby can access the breast for feeding. So keep that in mind. Choose comfortable clothing. The next tip I want to bring up is to scout out locations. So before you head out for, your activity, it's important to identify places that are baby friendly. Places that have a bit of privacy, right? Because those places will often have designated spaces, either near the restroom or in the restroom, where you can go and do a feeding. Some places even have what they call like feeding pods, where I've seen them in airports, and some places of business have them available for their employers. If you've seen them, definitely comment below. But they're like pods that you can go in and pull, the door for privacy, so that you can feed your baby in private. But you definitely want to identify some of those places before you actually go out before you actually have to be in a certain place. So you'll know if those amenities are available to you. Okay. That's tip number 2. The second tip is to practice discrete techniques like different positions, right? So if we know that the football hold is one that I recommend for newborns, where the baby is kind of tucked along the side. And so just the head is there, and it's very easy access to just pull up the shirt and allow the baby to latch to the breast. Another good position is the cradle position, because the baby is covering pretty much the front part of you, because you're holding the baby like so, right? And so again, you just lift up your shirt, and it's easy to latch the baby in that way. Now, if modesty is a thing for, as to why you may feel a bit uncomfortable being exposed, regardless of where you are, whenever you're out and away from home, I always recommend, I'm going to go back to what I mentioned before, as far as carrying a light blanket, a light cloth, something that's breathable, so you're able to put it over yourself and the baby, right? And the baby is still able to breathe, still able to, we like to make sure that when the baby is breastfeeding, they can do 3 things: suck, breathe, and swallow. Suck, breathe, and swallow. They have to be able to do that in order to feed successfully. And so having a light cloth over top is always going to provide that sense of security, so that you don't feel exposed. And I think that that's important, because it could just be your practice, or maybe you are a woman of faith and you feel like you need to be modest in the way that you are feeding your baby. Always make sure that you have something handy in your diaper bag when you're out and about. Okay, so the last tip that I'm going to drop here is to have positive self-talk. You have to remind yourself that you are, in fact, doing something very important that only you can do. Only you can do. You, as the mom of the baby, are the only one that can make the custom-made delivery of the breast milk, right? Everything else is going to be a substitute. Everything else that is provided to the baby for nourishment is going to be your substitute. You are doing such important work by breastfeeding your baby, and you kind of have to remind yourself of that, so you understand why you're doing it in the first place. That, if nothing else, empowers you to be able to feed your baby in confidence. You have to understand that you're doing something no one else can do for your baby, right? Which is to feed them your custom-made breast milk. I've said this over and over again. When you breastfeed your baby, it's like you are providing a custom meal delivery service for your baby, because your body literally scans the baby at each feeding to see if there's anything going on with the baby, any viruses, anything that could be detected, right? And then it customizes, it literally dials in the type of milk that you need. That's why when you pump your milk, you may notice that sometimes it's a golden yellow, and then sometimes it's a cloudy white. Sometimes it could be pink, or even have a hint of blue in it. Those are all very normal breast milks. There's nothing wrong with those. Don't you dare throw those out, because those are very good for the baby, actually. And it just shows the power of your body being able to do a custom formulary for your baby. That's why breastfeeding is important, whether you're at home in the comfort of your home, or whether you're out and you have to feed your baby, right? Regardless of where you are, regardless of your environment, you're doing important work in this world. And it's important to just have that positive self-talk, because you have to encourage yourself sometimes. You have to just know that what you're doing is super, super important. So just as a brief recap, we talked about the fact that research shows, right, that most people are either supportive or indifferent of breastfeeding in public. So don't let that one awkward stare or the one wayward comment discourage you from feeding your baby, right? Most people don't even care. Keep that in mind. The other things I want to remind you of, my screen just went out, is just the 4 tips. So the first one is to choose comfortable clothing that you can have easy access to scout out locations, baby friendly locations before you leave to go out on errands or, to be out with your baby. Scout out baby friendly locations so that you know where you have privacy. The third one is to practice discreet techniques by using a light breathable cloth to place over you and baby so that you can practice that modesty if that is still of concern and you would like to just feel a little bit more secure when you're out. Keep that in mind. And last but not least, have that positive self-talk that what you are doing, only you can do. You are giving your baby the optimal nutrition choice. And there's no, everything else is a substitute. With that being said, if you have questions, you are welcome to drop them in the chat. It's always a joy and a pleasure to hop on. I will be hopping on daily in January to tackle all topics from childbirth to postpartum, breastfeeding, everything across the board. I have some exciting topics coming your way. So please, if you are not already subscribed, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel because y'all, you don't want to miss these next few videos. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, happy birthing, guys. Bye.